Okay, so we just recorded this podcast, and we decided, how did we start? We were gonna do it up on the balcony and look really badass. Yeah, and then it started to rain. It was beautiful. And then a party happened during the podcast. Anyway, this is Michael Skye.
And a dog humped your leg.
This is Hans Comyn.
Then Hans humped the dog.
Oh God! And it was
nasty.
And he cried. It didn't even cry.
Small dog. It was a really small dog.
Hey. All right. Bye. Have fun in Medellin.
Wait. I'm gonna give a hug.
Oh yeah.
You can't do that on camera.
I'm not. I don't want to look like this. All right, man.
Talk soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, heart to heart. I almost kissed him. All right, later, guys.
I know that's what you want. Take care, man.
Tesão! Saudades, Tesão! So you ever have this thing where the world is just totally against you? I mean, it's gotta be against you. If the world, if God or Satan or whatever is not against you, then all these things could just possibly not go wrong. So that's kind of what happened here in this podcast, this interview. So backstory here, in April 2019, my good buddy Hans Comyn and my buddy who I was soon to meet, Michael Skye, came to Austin, Texas for a month, and my whole goal was to interview them as much as possible. Well, at first Hans, and then I got to know Michael. And the coolest thing is week number one, we did 2 interviews. One interview, which we have 16 minutes of that saved, but it was fully 90 minutes. And then later on, another interview with Hans and Michael Skye and I. That was about 45, maybe 50 minutes long. And they were epic. They were so good. It was amazing. The first week of them being here, we recorded almost everything that we needed to record. I'll put these back on because the one with Hans and I, and then a little bit of Michael Skye, I edited a short clip, 16 minutes, put it on YouTube. It's a sample for people to see. And shortly after that, while I was editing, my son came into my room and the hard drive went, fell on the ground. And man, oh God, it's probably one of the best fatherhood moments that I've had so far because, man, it was handled well. It was really good and it got handled in all the right ways. So then fast forward, I do another interview with Hans. Just him and I in this beautiful apartment. Everything pretty much goes well in that one. I mean, I can't really complain. That interview is epic. You should watch it. But nothing with Michael Skye and I again. And some of the best stuff that was recorded, in my opinion, was with Hans, myself, and Michael Skye. And none of that is locked on tape. So let's rewind to over a month ago. Hans messages me. He says, we're out of here tomorrow. We're going to Medellin. And I said, shit, I have a one-on-one tomorrow. We gotta get this interview in. And that's kind of how Hans and Michael Skye roll, which you'll hear about in this podcast, is they just kind of go with the wind. I say, fuck it, man. If we can do this podcast, I will cancel my one-on-one. We agree to a time, we show up, we set up the podcast, 3 cameras. Eventually I just go with 2 because this became such an editing nightmare, as you'll find out. We set up on the top of this amazing high rise, which Hans and I did our initial interview in. But this one, it's in the afternoon. It's beautiful out. It's looking over Austin, Texas. We checked the weather. There's no rain in the forecast. We set everything up. We check our audio levels, and guess what? Rain starts. We move inside. The light's all right. I make some typical mistakes setting up 3 cameras, which happens.
Get rid of it.
Then a few people come into the common area where we're doing this, which is kind of common because it's the common area. The lighting gets darker and darker as the rain clouds move in. Thunder starts coming through. It starts breaking up the audio, getting little clicks and pops and so on. I guess that's lightning, not thunder. But then behind Hans and Michael, a party starts. A party starts where apparently they made a reservation for the space, so their authority there or whatever supersedes ours. We have no place to go. Hans and Michael are leaving in a few hours, and because I rescheduled my one-on-one, I have to leave immediately after the interview. Out of the 7+ hours that I recorded with Hans and Michael Skye and myself, we thankfully have 4 of those hours, and this is 2 of them, which is really good. If you don't know Hans Comyn, he's one of the best coaches in the men's development industry. He doesn't call himself that, he calls himself a seducer. Michael Skye is his partner. And you know what? In this whole interview, we all become partners. Within this interview, it is hard to see, it's hard to hear. There's a lot of background noise. There's a lot of things that are against this interview and really the whole experience with Hans and Michael Skye and I. But in rewatching this, it made me think just how much I miss those guys wherever they're at in the world. It's very rare that you meet brothers who live as seducers, travelers, adventurers, as men. As you watching this, and what you're gonna find and be inspired by this is, in this conversation, there is the power of what everything I stand for. Now, because of all the different problems, and you gotta understand this interview starts off a little bit wacky and slow, just because we had to move from outside to inside, and 3 cameras and all the audio equipment, and it's just a pain in the ass. I've time coded everything down below of different topics that you might want to jump to. Do yourself a favor, watch this, listen to it, whatever it is. Pass it on to your friends. It's epic, guys. It's epic. This is what I stand for and live for in terms of men's development, and I'm sharing it with you. Find out more about Hans and Michael Skye. Their information's down below. And of course, if you want to join our groups, Austin Men's Development, well, this is what we do. Dudes, we are here again for the 80th time. This is the most amazing. So these interviews are the most worked for. So let me just put this out here right now. I really wanted to talk to you guys more because we had an awesome discussion the first time, which the hard drive is trashed on that. Hopefully I'll fix it.
Damn your son.
Dude, it's my fault. But anyway, so I was like, dude, you guys are leaving tomorrow. You're leaving on your adventure tomorrow to Medellin.
Well, the thing is, it's a last minute decision.
Yeah.
Because between the fuck all this and I got a ticket yesterday, it was about 20 minutes. So
get that sucker closer to you.
This one?
Yeah. So, no, man, I'm stoked. And one of the reasons why I'm stoked is because we were talking about so much. We were talking about masculinity. We were talking about sex. We were talking about seduction. And, dude, there's so much that I think needs to be said. You guys have been in the States for a month. You are American, Michael Skye.
No, I'm not.
Okay. A citizen of the world? Then what's up? Why are you not American?
I mean, technically, of course, I'm American, but I consciously left American culture. Like, I consciously left the religion, slash cult I grew up in.
Yeah.
And I consciously, in the very same way, I walked away from American culture. It was a very conscious, focused, disciplined thing that I did.
What does that mean? Does that mean that
Well, I identified the ways that I was American that I didn't see before.
Yeah.
You know that metaphor that they use, the fish doesn't see the water it's swimming in. After I traveled a bit, I came to see my Americanness in the ways that I wasn't proud of.
Yeah.
And I was ashamed of, and also in ways that kept me from being fully alive. There were so many ways that, for example, it's very American to have the first thing you ask someone when you meet them, so what do you do?
Yeah.
It's very American, which instantly puts you into this, what can you do for me economically?
I use that as kind of a routine, because it's you go anywhere in the world, and I would literally say this, I say routine because I say it so much. You talk to anybody, man or woman, and it's man, you go anywhere in the world, and they want to know about you, you feel you get to be yourself, and in the States, the first thing they ask you is, oh, what do you do? Yeah. What do you do as if that means anything of what my worth is.
Yeah.
Dude, I want to ask you this because as an American that traveled around a lot, I gained pride in being an American in a couple of senses, but didn't relate with America at home. Okay, and so I gained pride that, number one, this is the last thing I noticed, but we have a working government. And that's good, right? It's I can get hurt and go to an emergency room and I can call a cop and I can get help. Whereas in some places that's not, there.
Yeah, it's good and it has its pluses and minuses.
And the thing I love most about other countries, especially countries where the government isn't so structured, is you can do whatever you want.
Right.
And you're defined by your actions in the moment, just when bad things happen, which is rare, but they happen. They do happen. Even though they're rare, they're the vast minority. Out of 100 days, you might have 1 or 2 bad days, but those bad days, you might need that help.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that I gained pride in a sense of an American stereotype that Americans are just known for being relaxed and chill. And that's how I am. But Americans in America are not relaxed and chill. They're uptight. They're politicized. Everything's a fight. Everything's a topic about what's going on, and nothing is the experience. Kinda how you see it, or?
Well, once I'd been away for a while, because I used to be really angry from late teens up until I left, which I first started traveling when I was 35.
Yeah.
Like in a bigger way. And then 39, I left. Like I just left with a one-way ticket. And didn't even know I was giving myself the freedom to never come back to America, to my old life. And it's like, hey, if I determine in my travels I want to just disappear into the jungles of Africa and start a tribe and marry, a bunch of different women and raise my own tribe. Like I was giving myself that freedom. I walked away with that kind of like choice inside of me. So after I've been gone for a while, I noticed, wow, like I'm not affected by what's happening in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And so much here, I think one of the big problems is the country's so diverse. I think America might have the most kind of diverse country or culture in the world. And every 4 years, you got everyone voting on how everyone else must behave. And so any advantages you gained from the last election, you could lose in the next one. And it keeps everyone in this state of kind of fear and anger and like, we got to fight this. And after I was gone for a while, I was like, let them do what they want to do. It doesn't really affect me.
Dude, I was in Europe and in South America and the Caribbean for multiple elections. And what that kind of means is like, let's say Bush Kerry, we're going. That's what I'm talking about, American politics. But Bush Kerry are going at it. I'm in Europe. Obama, McCain, I'm in Europe. I'm in Trinidad, Tobago. I'm in Brazil. Just all this stuff is happening. And you're like, why does everybody care so much? And even in Europe, they care, but not like us. Not like it. It's ridiculous. And it's so ridiculous because this is my take on presidents, man. They don't represent me. None of them has ever represented any individual American in a good way. They've represented a group with compromises and so on. But no president will ever speak for me. Yet I'm willing to speak for them, burn my friendships, burn the people around me, like polarize myself to a value so much, to see so black and white, yet they would never do that for me. And I would even go so far to say as the government wouldn't do that for me. Now, I'm not trying to say I like the government. I like it. But let's be real. My personal life is going to be affected by a thought or a fear. My thought or fear is going to take away from me experiencing my human connection with people. And when I was traveling, I never saw that. But when I was back in the States, it was like, holy shit, man, like John McCain or George Bush or Obama is really that important to you that you can hate me for?
Well, I think you do have a lot of that elsewhere as well, but probably when we're travelers, we're just accepted. It doesn't really matter what brand of American we are necessarily. We're just kind of accepted.
Yeah.
And but I think in America, somewhat, I don't know how uniquely, but we have a real crisis of authority. We have a real fucked up relationship to authority, and as if it's like something external to us, as opposed to I have a good buddy who spent a lot of time with Native peoples and studying how they operated and functioned and stuff. And one of the things that he communicated to me is that inside of a Native American context, no one's my authority because they say so or because they're voted in or because of their position. Authority is only something that I grant. And what it is, it's like, if I feel that you really speak for me, that you really hold me and feel me in your heart, I'll say, okay, Steve, you can speak for me. In that moment, you're in my authority, but only because I've delegated that to you until such time as I feel you no longer speak for me. Now you're no longer my authority. And I think there's something very deep there that was central to my...
Keep talking.
That was central to my exploration when I was leaving the U.S. There was a way that I was leading my events, which was very much from that kind of like, I'm the boot camp leader,
Right.
you know, but I'd experienced, I just had so many questions. There are a lot of reasons why I left, but it was kind of like that hero's journey,
Right.
where you just have to, you realize how much you don't know, and you're like, man, instead of doubling down and committing to my path, I actually need to go and figure some shit out, experience some stuff.
So what was the change? Like, what happened when you,
That prompted me to go?
I guess,
Or after.
denounced your culture? When you hit the road, what has changed for you?
Oh, a lot, man. But I took on some really, I took on a lot of different practices. For one, I stopped asking, so what do you do for a living?
Yeah.
And I stopped answering it when people would ask me on the road, because invariably they'd see, like in Brazil, they would ask me where I'm going, and I would just say, well, depends where the next invite is.
Dude, so this is funny. I interviewed a coach, this guy, Pat Dively, amazing dude from Ireland. And we were talking about that because we're both coaches. And I'm like, I don't know how to explain what I do. Because I can't stand the like, I am a men's empowerment coach and like the advertisement of what I am. Because what I am, I work with the guys I work with regularly, and it's like, okay, you change, you do well or whatever, and we have a group. And
well, it's not very alive, right? The moment you put a label on it, people assume they understand who you are and what you do based on what they know about that label.
Yeah.
But it takes away the aliveness, and that's what I was really hunting and seeking for myself and my life and for my work. And you know, there's a very kind of artificial way of connecting that we often have.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say just in the States, but it's kind of a capitalistic type thing.
Right.
And I was extremely capitalist beforehand. I probably still am, but
what is capitalism then? Because I've always struggled with this. I consider myself a capitalist, but I've seen how capitalism, and I'm not an expert on this. I'm just a ex-punk rocker that talks shit on all that stuff. I needed an excuse to vandalize and drink, but basically, no, man. When you
just say, just believing in freedom, like my life is my own.
Yeah.
My property is my own.
Yeah.
And I have a right to it.
Yeah.
And I have a right to, like, if I work for something, earn it, someone pays me, I have a right to it. And but there's other ways of economics and politics that don't respect individual rights and the right of property and so forth.
I think that's where it gets weird, like where capitalism becomes bigger than the individual or community is where, and again, I'm not an expert on it. This is just me thinking off the top of my head. It's just like, that's where it goes wrong, because I enjoy building things and making things. And I also enjoy my community, but as soon as the thing or that thing, in combination with the separation from too many people, because there's so many people, we can't be affected by one another. And then that how somehow my ambition for something overpowers a group or community around me.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that I wouldn't put it on capitalism per se.
Yeah.
Because capitalism is more about like what other people are not allowed to do to you. It's basically just a philosophy of freedom, as I see it. But it's more about what it's become, like what our consumerism, for example. Focusing on like meeting our emotional needs by just buying the next thing and buying the next thing and
God,
all
man.
this sort of thing.
The more I'm stuck here,
notice when you come back here is the endless marketing, the endless upselling. It's the endless fine print, and before you know it, you're back in debt again.
Yeah. The more I am here in the States stuck. This is not as, if I'm in the States driving around, because that's one thing I've done a lot is travel around within the States, which I encourage to everybody, man. It's a beautiful country, but the more I'm stuck, the more I start thinking I need stuff. It's crazy. It's like I can't help it,
Yeah.
It's just this amazing
It's an easy
thing.
way to fill a hole in your life, right?
And it's weird because I'm sitting there thinking, going like, man, I don't need a hole filled. I'm fine. But
Well, traveling around, like when you're just living out of a backpack.
oh, dude, it's
There's
the
only
best.
so much you can put in your backpack.
Right.
So you can no longer just fill that hole by buying stuff.
Yeah.
So some of the practices I took on was like when someone asked me what I did for a living, I would give them a ridiculous answer to that question.
Yeah.
I wouldn't give them a way to put me in a box. So they'd have to still be in that mystery of who is this guy? And then I'm still in
Right.
the mystery of like, who are you? Like, let's have a real connection.
What did you say?
That's what I was wanting. It just depended on the moment, but
So what do you do?
like, what would I say? Well, for a time, like when I first started traveling, I was actually working with women who were in crisis in a relationship with a man. And I would tell, if I was talking to like Latino guys, I would say it in a way to where they're like, whoa, you know, like they thought that was so cool. The women were paying me for my advice on love and romance, and they just assumed I was having sex with them all and stuff like that.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You know, but I just would entertain the ridiculously, you know, like I was really like hunting my aliveness, like what makes me come alive. And like Hans, even now sometimes we're talking and I'll tell him like because I know you're after the same kind of thing. Like sometimes when he relates to me a joke he saw some comedian say or some show he watched, sometimes I'll just remind you like, Hans, like the moment that you just tell me that you're gonna tell me about something that you watched someone else say, I'm like I'm half as much alive. Like tell me about your experience, you know? Like the very subtle kind of distinctions about like what makes us feel alive. I was like stalking that in myself, you know? So the moment I could see, okay, I could answer them straight based on a very logical
Get that closer.
A very logical answer, like this is what I do for a living.
Yeah. Go ahead and lean back and just readjust it.
Instantly, that becomes boring.
Yeah.
To me, you know.
Yeah.
But the moment it starts getting ridiculous, now it's I don't know, interesting. So that was what I was hunting, was my aliveness.
Yeah. Man,
Just saying, we're gonna have a party here.
that's awesome. Okay. Are we really?
Maybe.
Oh my gosh. This I will tell you, this cannot be stopped. We're going to go party or no party. It doesn't matter. What do you think men need to hear? You know, what do you think guys need to hear, especially here, that are stuck in the kind of like trap or in the captivity of Western culture?
You know, I think that one of the most destructive messages that's just accepted as a truism, especially in America, is that if you're not happy, if you're not successful, if you're not passionate and excited, there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong in your thinking, there's something wrong with your personality, there's something wrong with you. So you need to take a book, buy a book, take a course, go see a psychiatrist or something like this.
Learn outer game or inner game.
Yeah, and
the thing.
And I like the metaphor, like imagine being born as a great majestic beast, a polar bear, but you're born into a zoo, a very artificial environment. Instead of a wild ocean with all kinds of sea life and creatures and mystery, you have this 5x10 swimming pool or whatever, you know?
Right.
Instead of this vast expanse where you can hunt and use your senses and everything and chase, you've got painted pictures of snowy mountains and stuff.
This is going to sound terrible, but because it's like one of those very conceptual things that I have. But first, I'll just say this. Whenever I walk my dogs are restless. They have a big backyard. They have enough stuff to play with. But as soon as they're out in the open, they don't go that far. Unless they're a hound dog. Then that hound dog will hunt for miles and miles and miles. But that freedom, the not seeing the walls, the being able to choose your own route is a key thing. And one thing that I did in 2015 was I meditated. I meditated for almost 90 days straight, and it was almost always in the wilderness. And I did a lot of like Wim Hof stuff or freezing myself in the cold, and you kind of trip out with that. But in that time when I meditated, I realized that there could be pain. When I was in nature, when I was in the world, there could be pain, there could be chaos, there could be confusion, there could be hurt, there could be anger, but it was fine. And it was all a part of nature. And as soon as I set foot back on the sidewalk, I inherited all the same problems that I walked into nature with, even though I had gotten my mind right. I had a little bit more faith with getting my mind right, but I was not able to, I couldn't get that peace. And it's just such a weird thing. Like the way we live it creates.
Well, it's like, imagine this great beast, this polar bear. All of its instincts are telling it to hunt, to run, to chase, to fuck, to... None of the instincts are right for that artificial environment that it's born into and that it's living in. And so there's no peace, right?
Yeah.
You're not right for your
Peace is a
environment.
thing you attain rather than something you were born with.
Well, it's like you're just born in an artificial environment. Everything's wrong inside of you.
But
for surviving in that environment.
maybe the thing you both see is there's a restlessness of that polar bear is going to think something is off here, but he doesn't know what.
So imagine, just tell the polar bear, just meditate.
Yeah, right.
Fake
And then
ass,
it's gonna get it.
artificial
Yeah.
bullshit environment.
Yeah, yeah,
What about fucking telling the polar bear to fucking break free?
yeah.
And go fucking out into the wild.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I think that's it, is that the things that we desire most, the things that are just so important to us, which is sex, which is eating, health, socialization, all these things that we long for, purpose, happiness, peace, we didn't need to work for before. And so this is like a huge part of my philosophy and like my whole coaching and teaching thing is the born to be expression. How do we get back to it? And you don't need to add anything to it. You need to take away the false beliefs of culture. Go ahead.
Yeah. What like you asked, what would you like guys to know, and what can they do?
Yeah.
I think what Michael is saying, and I totally see that, is that like you went out into nature, for example, or you go out to travel, you see a different thing, just to feel that there are different ways that you don't have to be in the zoo.
Yeah.
Just to know that there are different ways of relating, of loving, of dating, of being, of connecting with one another, and you see those in the world. You're coming back and you look, what the fuck? Now all of a sudden you see the zoo. You see you see the water around you if you're a fish, and so that's in and of itself, to get that taste,
And
that's so valuable.
And there's another thing. It's like there's a way in which that polar bear is going to take the zoo with him, right? All the conditioning he learned from the zoo, he's going to doubt his instincts. All the instincts he was taught were wrong in the zoo, he's going to need those to survive.
Yes.
But he's going to have that doubt, hesitation, fear to actually trust himself. So there's even going out into the wild, like that's not enough. We have to, like, in a way, do what you're talking about, which is deprogram all the conditioning.
I wonder about this in terms of sex, because for me, I'm kind of fine, and who knows how I will be.
You are
but
fine,
in that,
Mighty fine.
But in it, I got to this point where it was like, man, I've experienced everything I want and I can calm down. And I think that might also be lowering of testosterone, just getting older and those things. But I didn't need more. Whereas, man, I needed. And there was an endless fueling of this thing I needed. And I never think that a sex act is wrong, but I think the motive and behavior that it's empowering can be. So it was like I'd go to all these like crazy sex. I'd push it. And I knew that there was a beauty in all of it. I knew that it was good. But at the same time, it could be endless, because there can never be happiness in the environment that we're in. And I don't fully believe that. I do have something to say about it, but my baseline philosophy
What did you
is
say? There can never be happiness in
the world that we live in, which I don't fully believe anymore, because I think that happiness can be attained, but it takes a rigid life to do it. And man, just to jump forward, since we're on this, I think our culture is totally effed up, man. I think there's a lot of major problems with it, but culture's supposed to be, and human life wasn't always supposed to be easy, and that the benefits to our culture are great that we overlook a lot of the times too. But it does come with these problems. And to be honest, we're not going to change it. I mean, we were born in a cage.
Well, like, I've been listening to you guys because I think it's, I rarely make a like cultural opinions or describing it. So it's very interesting to me, But I'm a foreigner. I'm not American.
Yeah.
And I see when I come here, like how crippled in a way people relate to one another.
Oh man,
it's that's what I see firsthand.
It's tragic. It truly is.
What's one of the big things that I discovered about my own culture was that, like, in America, we'll tend to use money to solve our problems, right? Rather than a lot of other cultures use their connection, So like, and we can do this as we travel. Like, we could go out of our environment but then just behave like Americans, where instead of really relating to people, we just say, okay, well, it could be this uncomfortable actually connecting with someone.
Yeah.
You know, so we can buy something or pay someone for something rather than have that real connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the practices I took on was living through gifting, not charging money for things, not selling things, which was my whole life before.
Yeah.
But just not free, but gifting and receiving as a whole new way.
Yeah, there's a principle thing that I work off in my groups, is that we have these dailies, like daily be social, daily be sexual, and everybody's like, but I can't have sex every day. And I always tell them, I'm like, I can be sexually active but not sexual. I want you to show your intent. I want you to show, your masculinity. But one of them is giving. And I always say, it's not a donation. Like you should be face to face. Open a door for somebody, but also give something to somebody that is face to face in time and real, and that requires choice. Like that's one of the huge distinctions, I think, is choice is so important. And when we do that, it kind of brings us back.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like one of the ways Americans are disconnected is with, like, if I have a problem, it's mine to solve. Mm-hmm. Like, and there's something great about that, 100% self-responsibility, right? But it also it isolates me inside of my own reality. Instead of, like if I share with Hans the trouble I'm having and what I'm feeling, that could be taken as a sign of weakness or a sign of maybe I'm whatever, but it gives Hans a brother an opportunity to give to me, whereas if I don't share what's going on, I deprive him of that opportunity to give to me and me to receive from him.
Well, here's the problem, I think, when people get into self-responsibility, which is great. Being responsible for yourself is a requirement of life, and it's a part of growing up. But the boy or the immature man that reads too much Ayn Rand or Ayn Rand, whatever you say her name, the immature guy that gets way too into self-responsibility thinks that means that it's based on his selfishness, that I want to have responsibility for who I am so that I can relate with others, and that my life is in many ways dependent upon others, that I need that, but I need to fix my problems. I don't need to do that so that I could have more territory. And I think that's where a lot of guys get mixed up with it.
Me as an outsider, this is what I see. Mm-hmm. I think the taking 100% responsibility for one's life and one's success in life, I think that's only good, and that's just one facet of the individualism, which is very obvious in the States. And I think it's a good thing, the individualism. The problem is not the individualism, but that, to me, that is not balanced with a sense of connection or community at the same time, So you can reap the benefits of that as well. And that you see a lot more. Like, that you see everywhere. There's a lack of sense of community.
Yeah.
Of real connection, and by extension, community. And to me, the individualism is not a problem, It's just, if it's not balanced with that sense of community and connection, then you have a problem. When you said this, we were talking earlier, I thought it was so great. When you first start seeing the zoo, so to speak, you were angry with, say, American culture, and you had a very strong sense of wanting to save it, change it, And I see that with Steve.
Yeah.
You're very combatif, like you're a warrior in that. You wanna, and what you said, Michael, is when I started traveling, and you travel far and wide, all of a sudden or gradually, you say, I don't care no more. I don't want to save it.
It was really like a two-part thing. Like, I think a lot of people in the States here, we assume that the one thing is we have to change ourselves if we're not happy or successful. The other thing is change other people, right? And we map that onto relationships. If I'm not happy in my relationship, I either need to change her or myself or both.
Yeah.
Right? And the same thing with the government, the culture, whatever. And I took this on as a really deep practice in myself. Even when I'm traveling, if I'm not feeling welcome somewhere, let's say I've got some kind of issue with whoever I'm staying with, and it was a practice of me to stay with people, not just because before I would only live alone, I was super individualistic. And it was a practice of me to go and stay with people, show up consciously, generously, connectively. And what my practice was, like, when I start feeling even a little bit of like, I'm not welcome exactly as I already am, maybe it's time to go. Instead of like, I need to somehow change myself or change the other person, maybe it's time to just go. And not that that's what everyone needs to do,
Right.
That's the right thing to do, but for me, because my old self would be so kind of like forceful in making happen what I want to happen. And part of my practice was like letting go of all that kind of forcefulness.
So there's an aspect too, and this is where it's like I love talking because nothing's ever black and white, and people try and make it black and white all the time, but there's something about submitting to things bigger than you, maybe like seduction, but also very much like submitting to the world around me, or if you're religious, submitting to a power greater than yourself in those different ways. And when we were talking about the individual like a couple minutes ago, when we get into the individual, we get so self-obsessed, and part of happiness, part of being a man is not being bigger than your world. And I think that when you do, because as a traveler, I get it. Like, you don't feel welcomed, you can go. And you can, because the world's big, and you should see that. And this is a value that I'm not polarizing that. But there's a certain point in your life where it's like, wow, I should settle down. And I should, and it might just be a few days where it's like, I need to accept this. I need to live this. I need to sit with this, as Jim says, this ball of fire, and just hold it for a minute and see where it shapes me. And that beauty, man, some of the greatest points of my life came from that. Whether that was sitting in pain, or whether that was sitting in learning to sit in success or glory and not get.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The point for me is like feeling something I don't want to feel, and then instead of feeling it and letting it transform me and shape me, acting out to change my environment or to change myself, so I don't have to feel this. And then, but the magic comes from the feeling, and also the aliveness, the transformation, the aliveness, and the connection comes from the feeling. Whereas my old way of living had become very much like I was dominant in my world, the world I had created for myself.
Yeah,
and I didn't have to feel.
There's this way of life where we can see really. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me. There's this way of life that we get into where we can see how fucked up somebody is by giving them something or taking something away. And of course, if we get too much taken away, we're screwed. But if we get something taken away and we then act different because of it, we're not stable as a person. Or if we get $1,000 and we start thinking we have power, Same thing with pussy. It's like if we get something, it's easy for us to get stupid with it. And I think part of the journey of every human being is to learn how to have and lose. Anyway, what were you going to say, Hans?
Now I'm thinking about two things. What you just said, but also you guys go fast for me, okay? But also I was lingering on what you said, because it's very relevant to me too. When you become dominant in your world, when you celebrate your power to create, and the world you live in, it's in a way an avoidance of feeling, of being there, of letting you be shaped by the surroundings in a way.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
The kind of
a friend of me told me this. He said, you have a whole life of like making it happen, and you made happen so much in your life, and you become very powerful in it, and you feel like you can do it, and in a way you lose the ability to adapt and to adjust, and he said to listen to the rhythm of life. He says maybe you should listen to the rhythm of life a bit more. I was thinking on that while you were talking. So
and with what you said, it was also part of my practice, because a friend of mine, this buddy of mine, had suggested, maybe, Michael, all of your heroics and you're like, gotta save the world and all this is coming from something that you don't want to feel, in your past,
Right,
like
right.
around the family, the
Yeah.
divorce, my parents, all that.
Yeah.
And so I said, what if I just let my family, my idea of how my family needs to be, just let it go, let them go their own way, which is probably like this,
Yeah.
and then feel what I'm gonna feel when I lose that family. And the same thing with my business.
Yeah.
Let the business go.
Yeah.
Feel what I'm gonna feel, and then, maybe there's great wisdom in that. So, I was also going into shame because a lot of my life had been going away from who I used to be as a boy, as a teenager, and that I was embarrassed about, ashamed of. And I started exploring my shame, which is really fascinating. I mean, talk about coming alive. Like,
What did you get from that? Because shame is a huge thing in what we study, basically, because shame is the secrets. But shame in itself is an emotion or a feeling, but we hold on to it. And the only thing that can hold on to shame is pain or this fear locking it in.
well, shame is. I think shame is the main way that culture works to keep people in line, right? So if I act different from how everyone else acts, I could be ostracized. I could become an outsider, which means I could lose food, I could lose opportunity, I could lose security. And so there's a lot of fear around shame. Doing something that's shameful, it brings up a lot of fear.
But shame is a feeling before it's a cultural tool. Like, I do believe people use it to manipulate and those types of things, but...
Well, you think about a group of monkeys, right? A monkey starts acting a fool, something none of them other monkeys do, and they all look at it like... And all the monkeys start looking at you like this, and you realize... And you're like, uh-oh, I'm self-conscious now, and I'm feeling some shame. Right? It could be that's that subtle. Not like a big humiliation necessarily, just a little bit of like, everyone's looking at me like I'm doing something wrong.
Right.
So it's learned. It's not necessarily a basic emotion like Steve is saying.
What I am saying is it is a basic emotion, but it's
basic, but it has a
but
different
what is
flavor within
shamed
culture.
is learned.
What did you learn in like exploring this? This is interesting to me, like about the shame.
Thing, Hans, can you remove your hat because the lights all... for people...
Now everyone is going to know I don't have any more hair.
We were outside and it was beautiful and we had these epic scapes of Austin, and then the storm just hit us, and now we're inside and there's a party and it's dark and it's not even supposed to be dark, but shame. What did you learn?
Yeah, so in Uganda, you're not a man if you don't have children and you don't wear pants, like long pants.
Fuck.
I was wearing shorts when I was there, and still when I go there, I wear shorts, and I have no children, so I'm not a man, And so just like, it's great because there's a freedom that's available, especially the more you cross cultures, the less you kind of respect everyone's taboos, because you realize no taboo is religious, it's just a different culture. But when I would come back to the States and like not have money because I was living from gifting, oh my gosh, and to be around my family and like my mom and that so value success and financial success, and to not have money in this very individualistic, capitalistic society, man, there was some tremendous shame. But I have a whole new sense of freedom around all myself being alive and being self-expressed, because I've allowed myself to just feel what's there from culture to culture. I have so much freedom to be who I want to be and not care what.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about the problem, and we're kind of veering away from it now, but what's the solution, man? What is your solution for living a good life?
Man, that's a big question. I don't know there's like a one solution, but for me, I mean, one of the things is hunting aliveness, like what makes you come alive.
But today, I mean, shit, you just decided to go on a trip, and I even liked your goddamn Facebook post, which let me see the bars in front of me even more. but you just decided to go on a trip, and this was a choice.
Well,
you know?
I think for men who they've charted a course where they're following the rules in life generally. They're good. They're a good son. They're a good student. They're a good employee. They're a good Christian. They're good this and that. And if like they have a feeling that they're not fully alive, that like something's missing, something's wrong. One practice could be hunting what makes you inside of your body come alive and start paying attention to that. Allow yourself feel it, even if it's taboo, what the feelings are. Say what it is. Say the truth of your emotion, your feeling, and also act on it. Do what it's telling you to do. Begin that as a practice, and can revolutionize your life. It's not like a fix-all for everyone, but it's for people in the who say, "Fuck, I'm a good polar bear in the zoo, according to the zookeepers." Right?
Yeah.
But something's wrong.
Yeah.
Like if you start feeling like the urge to howl at the moon, or I don't think polar bears do that, but do it.
Even if you're a polar bear and you want to howl at the moon, you should do it.
Yeah.
You feel like a wolf.
Don't be stuck by your definition of what a polar bear is or isn't, right?
But I think that's great advice. You speak of the Tesão, which is the Brazilian version of desire, and
Is it Brazilian Portuguese or is it Portuguese?
Brazilian.
I don't know about Portuguese, but I know I've only been to Brazil. But with the way that they mean it, like the literal translation is like a hard-on, horny, but not just. And this is for me. This is a big insight because a lot of times, and for me, like, and my buddy O is someone that really pointed this out to me. It's like there's often a big difference in what we think we want and what we really in our body want. And if those two things aren't aligned, man, it can lead to a lot of frustration. So, for example, you can be with a woman who you think, wow, all my friends with, I just think she's so hot and like I should be attracted to her. But let your body tell you if you're attracted to her or not.
Dude, that is one of the most amazing things I think about sex is that, dude, of course we have a fantasy. Of course, I like what I like. It's actually funny. We have this thread on one of our forums about what's our porn search term, which was brought up originally as like a shame thing, like let's be open about it. But it's a resource and a wealth of knowledge at this point. It's unbelievable. Like I didn't know, and I thought I was an expert. I thought I was a black belt in pornography, but it was amazing to see. But in that, there's all these things you like, but the experience of sex is so much different. The experience of what's up, doggy? You like this? You want to be
dog.
on? You want to say hi? Yeah. So
Speaking to Mike.
well, but the experience of all of that is much different face to face.
Right.
Whereas when we don't have it face to face, it can only be a fantasy. It can only be a myth.
Yeah, there's like we can be chasing fantasies, things that we think we want, or that we become culturally conditioned to like seek after. That this is the attractive thing, the hot thing, the whatever. Or we can, which is like focusing on something external,
Right.
and letting that guide you. Versus like, what does my body say? Like what I noticed is like, I would start being with women and just noticing how I feel. And sometimes this was like an older woman, not physically like attractive in a sexual sense, but wow, I feel so warm and welcome and joy inside my body. Wow, it feels so good just to sit next to her, and
definitely,
that started to transform my life. My life.
It's so funny too because like when let's say you go to like Amsterdam or wherever, you see the most amazing, beautiful prostitutes, but they can never give you their beauty. I mean, man, it's amazing to look at. I mean, they're essentially their career at the moment is to look like the most beautiful woman you've ever seen. That beauty can't fulfill me in terms of sex, and every guy who's been there knows that, because it's like, oh man, I gave them, whatever, €80 and now and that was it. It wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't there. And
well, I would just say, but maybe even then, if you're really tuned into your feelings, right, and you're showing up generously, maybe you will have a really amazing erotic connection with someone who's in that line of work. I know that's happened to me.
Wow. In a straight up, well, let me tell you, in a straight up hooker story sort of way, I've had great, and I'm not a big hooker guy, but I've had some awesome experiences. But part of it is that you can't expect it to be the same seduction you'd get from meeting somebody without that sort of transactional thing with it. But when you can get past that transaction and experience, man, I love it, man. It's great.
That was one of my big practices as I go abroad. Something I'd recommend you know, for guys who are traveling abroad is don't lead with the money, not just with women. No, I mean, there's hookers, but you can do that with any woman. Like, let me buy you this, let me buy you that.
And
right?
oftentimes you'll spend more.
And don't lead with it in any of your interactions abroad. Yeah. Practice leading with a genuine connection. Like, if you go into the wilderness with a gun, imagine the feeling of that. Like, you kind of don't need anyone. You kind of like, there's a way that you might walk if you had a weapon, right? Versus if you don't have a weapon.
Dude.
You show up a little bit differently.
That lightning, like, fucked the audio up. That's awesome. Go ahead. I just want to...
You know, if you go without a weapon, you might be a little bit more aware, present, connected to what's around you, making sure that you're communicating a way of peace and non-threateningness around you. And yeah, anyway, I mean, there were some practices I took on that were transformed me completely, you know. But things that I had learned that to keep myself safe or successful in America, in those other places were going to totally interfere with me having a genuine connection with people.
What I hear is if you're looking for practical ways forward, is really like being able to tune into the body and what is it saying. Where does your body want you to go? What does your body want you to do?
But then I want to ask you, how did you do that today? How did both of you guys do that today? How did you tune into the reality of you? Today. Yesterday, today.
Yesterday, I'll tell you my experience. Okay. We're talking about, I don't know what we're talking about the day. And then we're talking about Colombia and Medellin and looking at travel plans and saying, we could go now. And just, this is my experience. And then checking in that moment with how I feel, I get totally excited. And so I get excited. So I instantly go and look for flights. And then we see the prices of the flights, get more excited. We see there are 3 seats left. And I say, Michael, if you book it, I'm going with, you know. And he says, well, I booked mine. So, and that alone, you know, and then I get super excited and I'm booking the flight. That's a very small example of like, I know how I feel right now.
Right.
And there's, you know, I've kind of tuned into it. Sometimes I think too much because, like, for example, right now I have an opportunity to do a big launch on the internet with the company I have now. It's coming up in the end of July, and if I do it right, I mean, I could walk away with hundreds of thousands of dollars in my pocket, more than what I would if I kind of coast along and enjoy Medellin and enjoy travels and stuff like this. And for my long-term happiness, I could make an argument that I'd be much better off. I just focused for another couple months, made that extra couple $100,000 more than I would have, and then I'd be better off.
Do you really think that? I mean, because are there examples?
Well, I'm not trusting that, is what I'm saying. I've come to tune in so much to what makes me come alive that, like, I'm letting that go. And I'm finding myself every day just like I'm focused on what's alive in the new project that Hans and I have.
Go ahead.
I think every guy listening, every guy has had the experience, I believe, where you know something is right. It's just right. You know it. You feel it. It's not just like you said. That's the feeling, and like I've had several examples in my life where I feel it, that I know, okay, that is the feeling of whatever you call it, love or honor or aliveness or whatever that is. That's what I want to tune into. That's what I want more of. You know. I was given an interview yesterday too, and a guy asked me, "How did you know this was the the path for you. And because 10 years ago I was working at university and I had a great career in front of me and I enjoyed it, you know. And but I wasn't. It didn't make me feel alive, seduced, like on fire, you know. And then I had this opportunity to do something completely different, which was Ars Amorata. I met Zan, and there was the prospect of like travel and growing community, talking about seduction, chasing women in all parts of the world. And I'm like, of course, you know, because I was tuned into that feeling, it didn't even cost me. I didn't need to be courageous to do that. It was so obvious because I trust that feeling a lot more.
Well, and also I don't know if you fully made that choice until you had a taste of that travel with Zen. Is that fair to say?
No. No, because in that point it didn't matter. You know, the travel mattered maybe less, but the fact that I could do this, you know, it was just
maybe you tasted being with him and in
yeah,
those conversations.
that's what it was.
Right.
Just the conversations with him and sharing visions. And that, you know, I remember my hair was up on my arms like, of course I'm going to do that. You know, how could I live with myself not doing that? And so if guys watching this, that's just that feeling that everyone has of it. This is right. And so you got to become attuned to that. And then you got to respect it, cultivate it, go look for it, hunt it down, cherish it, celebrate it, all of that.
I'll tell you the practice I took on, and this was the beginning of my life going sideways, you know, is I found myself staring day after day after day at my laptop, and I'm planning for the day when my life is going to be really exciting. And if my business just gets to this level and I just get to that level and then it's going to be great. And I was like, I just had this recurring sense day after day. And I had a great life. I had my own business. I was doing work, making a difference. I was living in Austin, Texas. I mean, everything was great. I had girls, everything. But I spent most of my time staring at a goddamn computer screen. Mm-hmm. And I decided, all right, I'm going to start telling people that I'm ready to be of service. I'm a yes. If I can make a difference here, if I can, you need me, whatever, I'm a yes, you know? And that was like showing up, saying what I want, sharing what I'm a yes, I'm willing to give. Then when they make the invitations to you, which they will, you take on the practice of saying yes to the invitations. And then without consideration of, is this practical, is this logical, am I safe, whatever, just say yes to the invitations. That changed my life, because a few months later I found myself in Africa, completely unpredictable. And after the taste of Africa, I mean, and this is the other thing I was going to say is like, a lot of times we think we know what we want, right?
Right.
And then we get it, and we realize we didn't want it. Get a taste first. Go before you settle on some goal or whatever, like, go and actually get a taste. And then come back, well, here's another great Brazilian word. It's called saudade.
Saudades. Yeah.
And saudades, it's like this deeply felt longing for something that I tasted, for something that I had. And you go back, and it's something that you have. And so now, instead of an idea or a goal or a dream or a fantasy or a want, you have this experience inside of you that you want to get it back. Yeah.
It's funny because that's one of those words that they don't have an American word for. So to describe it takes, I mean, I couldn't even define it, but all my Brazilian friends will tell it to me. They'll say it as they long for me.
There's another, and I don't think they have this word in Portuguese, but Hans and I are thinking of making it up. And look, we'll call it like either
Tedade
or tezade. Basically putting tesão and saudade together, which is like, when you go someplace and you feel so alive and turned on by the place, the women, the experience, that you go back with the longing for this felt desire.
Right.
And it's this is something I do now. Like we're going on a scouting mission to Medellin. I don't know if it's someplace I want to spend a lot of time, but I just feel so alive there. Like I've got a hard on for life there.
Right.
When I leave, I'm going to walk away with tesade or tedade, right? I mean, that longing for that I had in Medellin. And then that's going to be what drives me, instead of some mental idea or culturally conditioned want.
A felt
which
experience.
Is much more powerful.
Yeah.
It's that. I give you.
It depends also where in Brazil, because like you say it like a Paulista, I say it like a Carioca.
Travel a little bit.
Oh yeah, no, I've been around.
Carioca.
We need to another time. We need to interview about all your travel experience.
Yeah.
We can right now.
Your gangbangs.
International gangbangs.
I wish I could have participated in the true calling of man. Dude, I'll tell you this, man. So we're I guess we can talk about this. I'm really like, this lighting is just so fucked. Anyway, whatever. But so this guy, you guys were just talking about Brazil and gangbangs, and so I don't know what the fuck you guys were just saying, but so one of the things I just talked to a guy, and he was talking about a group sex event that we'll call a gangbang whenever there's like 3 or more guys going to kind of gangbang territory. I don't know the exact
We're
definition.
leaning in, not because of the story, but because of the noise.
Yeah. It's all right. It's not entertaining.
I'm totally leaning in because of the story.
Yeah, so you might get wet, man. I might fucking squirt now. But so one of the things that they...
Well, we got the 3 guys.
Jeff,
3 guys in a cup. 3 guys in a cup.
we had a little dog here.
Drink from
We
this.
had a little dog also. Doggy.
Hey, man, whatever gives you Tesão.
But this guy he was writing about, he was like, man... In fact, I'm going to read the text because this is really fucked up. And English is this guy's second language, so there might be some weird stuff in here. But where is this? So he said, I had one Wednesday. We gangbanged some guy's mom. Setting them up is a skill set in itself. It's a lot of work. I'll let you know when the next girl comes up. They never last more than an hour because the ladies tap out around the 30 to 40 minute mark of nonstop fucking. And then he said, I felt really inspired because there's nothing like a woman being so caught up in sex and how much she likes dick. And he's not, I mean, and you know, we're guy talk texting, and that, you know, can get misinterpreted in a lot of ways, but the beauty of it is that
I relate to. Like I don't know what it says about my Tesão, but like to see a woman.
Your relentless craving of cock. Being overwhelmed by so many cocks thrusting inside of you that... let me just say, it does not come as a surprise to me that he would say something like that.
But really, like,
No, let me finish.
I'm not going to let this get sidetracked because this is passionate. It's
No,
not passionate.
the seeing a woman being caught up
Yeah.
in sex, that to
amazing.
me has also been one of my most beautiful experiences
Yeah.
and sights
Unbelievable.
to behold. You know?
And to take that away too, and I think that so all these things like sex or ambition or the desire to journey, we put in all these boxes and confinements that just fuck us up, and then we think that that's travel. We think that watching TV and picking a place is travel, when travel's the adventure, and the adventure can happen anywhere. It doesn't have to be on a plane. It's just when you have that option, of course you're going to take it.
Well, mostly the way we travel is anything but adventure, right? It's
Right, yeah,
It's
yeah.
the tourist package. It's the excursion. It's the resort. It's really funny. It's a great anecdote. I was in Rio de Janeiro. Mm-hmm. I was
With the
gifting.
cariocas.
I had been invited to come gift a workshop there. And the woman hosting it was from a very wealthy, famous family in Brazil, and she was bragging about how her son led these tours of the favela. Well, the way I was traveling was I didn't like treating like people like a zoo, right? It was just kind of like go tour as a tourist the favela. I really didn't want to do that, but I also wanted to accept her gift. She really wanted to give me this, so I said yes. Her son was leading this kind of expedition into the favelas, which are the slums in Rio. And we were driving, so they'd pick me up. We're driving, stopping at the hotels, picking up some different people to go in. It's kind of like a tourist thing.
Yeah.
These 2 African-American women from Houston got on, and, they were dressed up, and they were telling us how they were on their yearly vacation, and how they'd seen so much of the world, like so many countries and all this. And I asked them what they were doing, all this stuff, and they were telling me about the stuff, and they had what they were going to do, and they had their brochure open and everything,
Yeah.
you know. And they're like, what about you guys? I was there with my indigenous Brazilian girlfriend, and I started telling them about this magical experience I'd had the night before on the mountaintop of Rio with this this Brazilian cult where we partook of ayahuasca, this substance which altered our minds and gave us revelation and all that. And it was really funny because they both looked at each other and they're like, they looked at each other and they looked at their brochure and they looked at each other and they're like, that's not in here. And it's like, that's the way most of us travel is what's by choosing the things in the brochure that we think we're going to like.
And that's
we're
what's
not
fucked
open
up
to
is that's how we make love. That's how we find health. That's how we find peace, is we look on a manual and a map of where we don't even know where the destination is. That it's so man-made. We're using man-made solutions to try and find things that are of the spirit or of nature. You know,
we're trying to have adventure without becoming uncomfortable.
Yeah, and very true. And the essence of to me of adventure is the encounter, which means there's an element of surprise in there. There's an element that's not controlled, and tourism.
And if it's done right, an element of, oh shit, what's about to happen?
Yes, I should read a quote also from Mark Jenkins about travel, but the encounter is the essence of it. Like you don't know what's going to happen, whether that's with nature or with people, or there's an element of surprise, and you it's in that moment, you know, that
You're
the
not
adventure
in full control.
Yes, that's the adventure, you know, and tourism does the exact opposite. It takes away the essence of travel, which is the encounter.
You become a consumer of the local people, of the place, and you get the photos.
It's innately objectifying, and seeing things as objects is fine, but when you can't experience it, it messes it all up.
An experience in a way that, like, you could be touched, moved, transformed by the experience. Like, you could fall to your knees.
You should be changed, And I think this about sex. I think that every person that I have sex with should change me. And I see so many men and women trying to have sex but never be changed by it. And back to even that the individualism that we're talking about is individualism in terms of, well, fuck individualism. I can't speak on behalf of it, but self-responsibility. Being able to be responsible for who you are and understand that is a huge thing. But being unchanged by the world is something that I think builds a toxicity of yourself. You know, it's just you don't have any. You're supposed to be changed by the world. Every person that I exchange with, that I like, anytime if I get a sale, it blows me the fuck away. And I've gotten many sales, right? But it just every time I'm like, wow, this guy for fucking $10. This guy wanted to do this with me. Now I'll spend $10 all day long. You get gas, you get food, but I am a coach. He gave me $10 because he thinks that something that I've done or something that I can offer him can help change his life. That's beautiful. And it doesn't matter the amount of money. If it's $2,000, $20,000, if it's whatever it is, man. I actually made, well, it didn't fully come to fruition, but I made a $2 million sale, and I was like, but the payout was over a long period of time that eventually got augmented, but still turned out to be substantial, still the largest sale I've ever done. But in that, you're like, wow, that's amazing. It's not amazing that I'm great, that I could get this money and do this thing and build this value in myself. It's great that I could experience with somebody that thing. That is fucking awesome.
But he wants to be changed by you, or with your help.
Such a respect.
Trusting.
You know?
He's trusting you. He sees something for himself, and he's trusting you to help bring him there.
Yeah, and it ain't gonna be me.
Something that's gonna make him vulnerable.
It's like I just offer the infrastructure. I don't like he's doing all the changing.
But he's trusting you on a certain level. He's saying,
it's amazing.
What's in you, I believe, can help get me there. That
always blows my mind. I just think that there's this thing in our culture where we don't want to exchange. We don't want to be affected by anything. And the things that affect us are going to do the most. And I think with sex, that's just so relevant.
Well, it's this was one of my big inquiries when I went to travel, because I'd led my events for years
Yeah.
around the States, and I always charged money for them.
Yeah.
But the most powerful one I ever did was when I gifted it to everyone who came.
Yeah.
And I did it for the people. I gifted it to people I really wanted to be there, and it was next level powerful. And I was perplexed by this,
Right.
you know, and that's one of the things that set me on my journey, was realizing there's something. And I had a bunch of those experiences. In fact, I had been invited to Brazil for years to go, and one of the guys who had received my gift and come to that event had been inviting me for years to come do my work in Brazil. But I thought, well, I only know one guy there. I don't speak Portuguese. It doesn't make logical business sense to go to Brazil and do my business. But after I gave everything up and I started on my journey and I just said yes to his invitation, I had the easiest time doing my business in Brazil. He just filled these events for me, and they were full. And I don't remember exactly what we were talking about.
Well,
here,
no.
Steve, but-
This brings up another thing, because this happens in my groups all the time. The guys that I give discounts to or make things too cheap, they don't do any work.
Right.
But then the guys that I charge a lot for, they do a lot of work.
Yeah.
But the issue is never, because I've gotten things for free that I've worked very hard at. The most important things, hands
Yeah.
down in my life.
Yeah.
The best.
Yeah.
I didn't pay for money, or it was like I got a major discount somehow. And of course, I'd be willing to pay things, but
Yeah.
it just so happens the best things I never paid
Yes.
for. So I
But
just
this is a
ran-
huge question for me. What's
Yeah.
going on there? And when I return to my work, I want to combine the best of both worlds.
So check
Charge
this
a
out.
lot of money and get the magic of gifting.
for my thing, the Purpose and Ambition Challenge, I decided to do the challenge for $10. I usually do it for free as like a marketing thing, like get guys. And I tell all the guys, I'm gonna try and sell you on something. You should be able to make a choice whether you want it or not after it. I mean, this is not a trick. I want you to get to know me. So for $10, for 14 days, they could even come to the meetups if they, wait a minute. They could come to the meetups if they're in Austin. If they're international, they get to come on my calls, and then they get a private Facebook group, and then they get all the content. And the content's good. Like, the content's great. But the thing is that they're working at it at this voration level for $10. The voracious level for $10. But I offered it then free to my list. I said, I'm going to do an experiment, guys. I'm going to offer it for free to everybody here. Watch that dog. So we got a lot going on here. So I offered it for free to everybody on my list. Now, I'm not encouraging them. Nobody's done it. So it wasn't my list. It was a subsection of 4,000 people, but nobody, to my knowledge, is doing it. But then of the 20 people who paid $10, which is not a lot, there's about 58% of them or whatever it is doing the challenge, like really well, which is pretty crazy, right? So I'm like, it's not the $10, because $10 isn't an investment. What this is the engagement. It's choice and an outlet to do it. Because if I run a membership site, which I've had, people don't do shit. They have all the content they want. They don't do shit. But if there's something where they can unify, and I'm big on groups and community, they'll do it. If there's something where they make a choice like, yeah, man, I'll give this 14 days, I'll do it, they'll do it. And those are the two factors that I think are necessary.
Well, to me, what I kind of distinguish is there's a big difference between free and like a sacred gift.
Yes.
Right? Free is like sticking my old couch on the
Yeah.
curb and putting a free sign on
Right,
it. Right?
right,
There's
right,
no
right.
connection.
Yeah.
Someone's going to come pick it up in the middle of the night, and
Yeah.
we'll never have it's
Yeah.
never going to be a gift.
Yeah.
You know. But if I see you struggling and I'm cold, and I give you my favorite jacket, I'm like, because I want you to have it. I really want to give this to you. And you realize you realize that I saw you hurting and I gave something of value to you. And then how you're going to receive that is completely different from the guy picking up the sofa on the side of the road, right? So, but all this stuff is fascinating.
But that's a hard thing to achieve in our society, where we can just give something and have it have the meaning of what it once did have. You know, like maybe a father giving something to a son, or boss giving something to the new boss or the person stepping up. It has a
There's
feeling.
a lot
to
of
it.
things I think that can only be given, right? Like,
Oh, absolutely.
you can't buy my honor for you,
Yeah.
right? Like, give me $10 and I mean, maybe you could, but it's somehow cheapens it if we pay for some things.
Right.
You know?
I think that as I adjust this camera, I think that like there's so much in our world where we have lost our complete. We've lost like, the things that give us meaning because we don't have the opportunity. Like we don't have the opportunity to experience sex and love and fucking transaction, giving, sharing on a level that I think we were truly meant to have, you know, and I see that in travel, we're attempting to find that, you know, that's like one of those things.
Yeah. I feel so passionate about how much travel and living abroad can really transform someone. But there's plenty of people who go there and don't get that because they just like they'll go and move into the expat condominiums full of just other disaffected Americans and Canadians and Australians, you know. And they don't get to really be touched by the local
This is one of
people.
the things that I hate so much. So you know how many times I've traveled and booked a hotel? It's very rare. I mean, like first time I went to Europe, I was there 2 weeks and I stayed in one hostel. Everything else, I met somebody and made a friend, and it was real easy to do. And then I've just kind of always done that. And when I see like a big group of in Europe, I don't see so many Americans, but Americans kind of have the stereotype that they do this. But I see a lot of Germans, I see a lot of English guys, I see a lot of Aussies, and they're just partying, which is great. You know, you should party and do all that sort of shit. But I don't see them making friends and building connections and being Budapest and being Barcelona. I see them taking, and
that's very much a distinction there is between gifting and taking, right? It's like the consumer tourist experience is one of taking. It's not of giving.
A couple things I want to ask you guys about. Michael, Skye, we had talked before, and you were talking about leadership. What is a leader? How did both of you guys actually gave a definition? I think in one of the Lost interviews.
It's a very big question, but and I think Hans said like going first, right? That's a huge part of it, like leading from the front, like being someone that someone else wants to follow, right? Not talking about shit that you're not doing.
Yeah.
Doing shit is the most important thing. And then maybe you talk about it also.
Yeah.
But you're not getting ahead of yourself with your talking, right? You're not putting forward your image and your ego to get people to follow that. You're leading through your example and through your actions. And I think what you said pointed to that last time we talked, I think. And then, but for me also, it's I don't want to ever assume it's my role to lead someone, as in be their authority, you know, as if I know what's better than them, better for them.
Yeah.
I want to be with them in such a way that they find their own inner leader and help them and support them in trusting that and developing a trust in that. So, and part of my job is like, if I do want to have influence on someone, my job is to get to know their world and feel what they're facing, face what they're facing, and stand for them and with them, such that it's only then do I feel are they ever going to even have a chance of really being like, you know what, like I'm going to listen to what that guy says because I get that he gets me, you know. So I think that in a lot of ways, I mean, it's a big, like if you say lead a company, I might have a different response. But to be a leader for my people or my family, it's not me telling them what to do. It's more me honoring them.
What about yourself, Hans?
Well, it's very close to what I said last time when we talked about leadership, I believe, is that leadership in itself is a lifelong quest to understand it and become better at it. But I think the last thing you said is truly essential, and it's a learning that I've had, is to really lead to and to change someone. You got to meet them first in their world. You got to honor them in their world.
Yeah.
You got to make sure they feel seen, felt, and heard. That you walk their shoes, and that they trust that you see them. And then and only then, you have a possibility of guiding them to another place. So that's something I learned about leadership over the years, is that comes first. It's how I define seduction also. You gotta meet them in their world first.
Now, what do you?
And sorry if I just interject one thing. I wouldn't say that's the only way. Like, if you are actually with them in their world, living with them, like you're in the moment of crisis and you're gonna take full responsibility. You're gonna face everything and avoid nothing and take the risks and whatever. Like, they're also likely to follow you, right? They're also likely to come with you. But if I'm not living in your world and I'm just trying to like lead you or tell you what to do, I think to me that's a misalignment. You know what I mean?
And I think that if we go back to that honor or giving, is that if somebody takes my leadership in the sense that they take who I am as a person and they want to follow, I know how important that is to live life as an individual and give my life to somebody else, that I should take that honor. And the way that we present leadership now is like, worship me because I've accomplished. I have what you don't have. And that's
you said that. I wanna honor you for that, because just before you said something very similar. When a guy pays me $10, I feel fuck. That guy puts his trust in me, and you instantly feel spoken to when this happens. I think that's your strength as a leader very much, and you say it now again.
But it's interesting because also with what Michael was saying is that to be a leader means that it doesn't mean that you follow me. It means that you find your own following, and as part of that, or your own, whatever guidance and forging of the path. But sometimes you might need to look towards me. You might need to mimic. You might need to, and that is such a.
You might want a mentor. You might want a community. Of course, all of that.
Yeah, it's just so interesting, man. It's so funny because it's just we're like getting hammered. Everything that we thought would work out in this interview is like, boom. But it's amazing, and hopefully.
How is the sound?
It's terrible.
It's so loud, man.
And all of you guys are peeking with your eyes.
No, let me say something else.
Yeah.
I think that what a lot of men in today's world need, even if it's just one elder, a man who's older than them, that they look up to and respect and admire, who gives a fuck about them. Someone like that, and who will also challenge them.
But it's like, how do you learn that
challenging
respect?
them is a way of saying, I believe you have what it takes to meet that challenge.
Yeah.
Go and do it, young man.
But there's that thing of like, how do you learn what respect is? Our world is so fucked up.
Well, but I think, as a boy, you know it. You're like, I don't respect that guy. I respect that guy. You don't need to know.
To reset, to get back to that place
Just
of
for me, it was my maternal grandfather. It's like, that guy's amazing.
I'm just saying, it's like we get sold it over and over again. Like, respect is, you could buy it, in a 40-day package, or some bullshit like that. And it's, instead of actually respect is what we felt it. What willed us to make a product about it and then sell it to the masses and all that. It's such an odd thing.
I think the felt sense there is the red thread through this conversation.
Yeah.
Not the conceptual, what we think, we want to, but the felt sense of it, of what makes us alive, what is respect, what is love. Your body has wisdom that way. And I think that's a very good practical advice to anyone listening and looking for a way forward.
What do you value most about your life?
About?
Yeah.
About what?
What is the most precious thing in your life right now?
My desire.
And how is that?
Well, my health and my family and the people, but in my own is my own desire.
Yeah.
My own because I know how precious it is. I know how much of a driving force it is. I know how it makes everything feel good. I know that it creates beautiful things. So that desire, that aliveness, that Tesão, that's a worthy pursuit. So I look for it. I'm like scouting for it. Hunt it down.
How did you last find it? So we have to yell.
Yesterday I found it when we were booking flights for Colombia.
Yeah.
We're going in a couple of hours. I felt that when I'm on my bike. When I 5 years ago I started biking, and I remember that feeling of those first couple of rides and and races. I'm like, wow, that feeling. Or when I was in love, or when I start doing this work, or it's just once you feel it and you don't betray that feeling, and you cultivate it more and more. It's so obvious that it's your guiding force in life. So,
what about yourself, Michael? What is the most precious thing in your life?
I would echo all of what Hans says, but I talk about honor, which is like you can have a heart on and you can have your heart on. Like it's like the desire of your heart.
Yeah.
This force I call honor.
Yeah.
But I think even at a more basic level, it's courage and self-honesty. Like the willingness to face everything, especially about myself in reality. I think that's the single most priceless thing. It's a precursor to even feeling or being honest with yourself about what your desire is, or what you can't have honor without that. It's like, I mean, it's the fundamental force of human consciousness and being a conscious being, right? And to me, it's like it's constantly about like waking up, be honest with myself, look at something, face. To me, that's the number one.
So who knows what the fuck is happening? I'm still on this mic.
You guys are about
What the
leadership.
fuck are we gonna talk about?
We were talking
now?
about leadership.
Leadership! All right, so we're have complete adversity here. I'm gonna hit the road and drive up to Dallas in probably like 30 minutes or less. You guys are gonna get on a plane. What do we have to talk about with men? Like what's there that needs to change? I mean, there needs to be more dialogue.
I would love to. I'm very interested in you and how you're leading things and the stuff you do, and in forging my friendship with you. So I would love to know what's going on for you in the coming 6 months. What's on the horizon.
It's weird because there's a lot of passion I have that is for my business, my family, all these different things, but I don't know what's going to happen. And I want to do more filmmaking, interviews, things like this, whatever it is. And it's like such a huge thing for me is art. I've always been an artist, and seduction is an art. I've always thought that, but I know I'm going to keep working, and that's the only guarantee is like, I know I'm gonna, I could think about this. I could go like, man, I'm going to expand my business. I want to grow. I want my groups to get bigger. And we were talking about this before because I'm like, man, I want to make more money. And you're like, I think you're doing fine. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to get it up that next level. But then community changes. And like my
Hans, do you
community
think we can help him get it up?
Yeah, we can get it up.
No, but you guys missed an amazing
Let me ask you
meetup,
something.
let me tell you.
You said you want to get it up. You want to get your business level up. No, but do you have Tesão to really grow your finances in your business?
I don't know, and I don't care, because to me, I don't think that makes a difference. Because if I were to use sex as an example, my Tesão was there. I didn't need a fucking extra passion. I didn't need a Tony Robbins.
Well, that's what I'm
seminar.
saying. But if you have that to really become financially successful, that really does make a difference. But I'm not talking about adding something that you don't have. I'm just asking about what you have.
No, what I have is what I have. I mean, I think whatever it is, but what I have I now know other people don't have. And I know that when certain people, not every person, when they touch our groups, which is not me, it's more than me, it's just I built them, it's amazing. That it is an amazing thing. And so in that sense, me showing up and doing what I've always done, yes, I have. If that's the Tesão, that's it.
Right.
And it's not just a matter of like marketing or I guess it is or whatever, but I don't care about that. If I did care about that, I would not have built what I
That's
would
why
built.
I was saying I think you're doing all right, because like all I see you doing is what you really want to do.
I see you most alive.
great.
Yeah, I see you most alive. One, when you have these kind of conversations, I see you very alive. I see you thinking, and also when you, it's true, when you're with guys, you know, and you in your eye you see someone needs help, you're like.
Or when you see them bend over in front of you, you're also like,
I'm not even reacting to it. That's the way to do it.
No, but I've seen a lot of that. Like man, I love fucked up jokes because I live in a world where there's fucked up shit. And in my world of helping guys, like I had a guy say to me the other day, he's had like the worst problems that are beyond whatever. And we have our pain. Like your trauma is your trauma. I can't put a finger on it. But to him, what he experienced was pain. And I'm like, man, no problem. Let's talk about it. And I even tell him, I'm like, man, I don't know if I can heal you. It's not that. I mean, that's a whole different process, but I can listen to you. I can listen to you and I can tell you my story. And through that, there's magic. That to me is spirituality.
Yes.
If I were to say what God is, it's sex in that moment where you look at a woman and your dick is inside her and you are both something else. That is it, man. It's also conversation. It's when empathy hits. It's when you gift. It's when all these things happen. But when you see pain that is unfixable, and to everybody they see it, but talking to another person cuts that edge off. It doesn't have a magic wand. It is the magic wand, but the magic wand isn't the fantasy of my pain. Like you talked about want. Fuck want. And I want tons of stuff, but want is not the guidance to my excellence. The guidance to my excellence is going to be acceptance of who I am, connection, and what connection can turn that want into. And that is what is fucking beautiful. Right after that guy told me that story, I talked to a woman who was talking about how fucked up her life was, and she was trying to stay clean that day. She's a drug addict. And in that same sentence, she sits there and she says, without a flinch, and she's like, and man, I'm just trying not to get loaded today because my daughter died in CPS's care this morning or yesterday, and I'm just trying to remain cool. And I'm just like, that's so incomprehensibly fucked up that it's just so crazy, right? But in that, there is a beauty of just listening. It's nothing more. It's no Tony Robbins shit. It's no magic show. It's not $1,000. It's not $10,000. It's not bringing her daughter back to life. It's listening because we're here in the living world, and all I know how to do is show up in front of somebody. And if we forget that, we're trying to have sex while living somebody else's fantasy that's built off of a pain that's so detached generations and generations beyond us, and we think that's how it's going to be, but we're equipped to have the experience to fuck, to make love, to dance, to partake, to share, and we don't do that. And it's funny because you guys are on this mission to travel, and I wish I could do it, but there's a discipline that I think, I have a family, I can't. So I was telling you guys, I'm just trying to tell you that, no, I have honor and I have and I got to stand by my family. I can't travel like I used to. I can't do those things, at least for today. I mean, I can technically, but in that, how can I find that peace? Because I've seen what human potential is and what faith is in human potential, and I can have faith in that. And that's beautiful.
You can't. You're fucked.
But see, and that's the thing is what I want to tell people is like your whole thing is like, I'm fucked, then be fucked. I've been literally fucked, sitting outside of a fucking car, wasted, and trying to be fucked by some dude who's trying to take my wallet and also fucking me. That's fucked. That's literally it there. I have been fucked in terms of not having anything and been hurt. You know what it's like to be fucking homeless and you get an infection? You're fucked. And man, I had more advantages than most people, but if you're there, you will know reality. But you shouldn't need that to get reality. And the sad thing is we built up a life that is so good, which has many benefits, and I don't want to go backwards on it, but we can't get in touch with reality anymore, and we need to do that. I'm not saying this building is bad or whatever, or being able to go and get a fucking burger and, you know, not have to kill your food. That's great. I want to keep that, but
I think what you do is you really reach through and connect with people. You know, you really have a fire for that. And you let money facilitate that, but you don't put it as a barrier to people's connection. You know, like the $10 thing. You know, that's like, okay, pay something, pay a due, pay something that shows some respect for what we're doing, but or something of your commitment. But that's not $10 is not going to stop anybody from like participating in your group.
You know, it's funny. I was talking to a marketer, and he was recommended by a friend, a very good friend of mine. He said, hey, man, he's worked with another guy in the men's development industry, and he made the guy a lot of money. And he has made the guy a lot of money, right? So I talked to him. He ended up not working with me. He bailed out for whatever reasons. But I actually said, hey, I've worked with Canute, and I want you to talk to Canute and see if you can work with me if this will work. And then he talked to Canute, and then he said, hey, it's not going to I don't know if it had to do with Canute, but Canute I love. Like, he's a fucking great guy. You know him too? Or great guy, right? And I would, grow a business with him hands down. It's no brainer to me. The thing is this guy, I was telling him about my life, and he's like, well, what do you want? What do you want, man? What's missing? And I'm like, there's nothing missing. I just know I'm really good at, dude, I do good things, man, and I'm really good at what I do. I think I should get paid for it, what I deserve to be paid. But what do you want? What's missing? I'm like, nothing's missing from my life. I'm like, man, and he's like, I think there could be more. And I'm like, no, there's more. There's definitely more. I'm just not hurting, and you can save me. I want you to be a fucking marketer. I want you to do your goddamn job, which is to take a product and put it out in the world. But instead, for you to do that, I need to be in pain. Anyway, it was just a weird conversation. Eventually, we came to a point where we could agree. But I just thought it was funny because he turned me on to this guy that he helped, and he's like, man, this guy made $200,000 a year. And I'm like, man, I'd love to. That's one of my goals. Like, I'm a $100,000 guy. I'd like to make $200,000 a year. And he goes, well, now he makes $1.3 million. And then, I looked at the guy on Facebook, so now I get all his fucking ads. And I'm like, man, fuck that shit. That's the kind of guy I want to fight. Because, right. And he could maybe kick my ass. I don't care.
Probably really good at marketing, but the shit is bullshit. Like, it's not.
I don't want to sell to men like this shit about like you're gonna feel strong and powerful, so you can like no longer be weak because you are afraid to be weak, and you never want to look at how you were weak, and you never want to look at that time in childhood when you were bullied and you felt bad, because it's never going to come up in your life again. Never. And that's why you can't have a relationship. No, it's not because of that. It's because I don't know the right line for the woman, or I don't know how to hold a frame. And this fucking fear that men have, they're so goddamn afraid to be willing to be their best. Because to be my best, I had to see pain, and I will always welcome pain. I don't want it, but man, I know I can live through it. So why should I fear it? Anyway, I'm talking too much.
See, this is your aliveness.
Connecting. Yes. Nothing beats conversation. The people on YouTube may think whatever about it, or Facebook, but nothing beats fucking talking to people. That's how we gain respect. That's how you feel.
That's really what people need is connection, and guys need real men in their life who are going to have their back and call them on their shit and whatever. And
yeah, they're privileged. I tell
being good at selling stuff is not the same as making an impact, and you can do both. But I think the most important thing is the first one. I mean, the one you're doing.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. You're a businessman. You're a man who's a businessman, and you're a seducer.
I'm a businessman.
You're seducing the world. What does that mean?
He dreams of being a businessman one day.
That's
the first part.
I go so far as taking on board a mentor. Hoping
he writes emails about business sometimes. That's a good step.
Hey, but dude, I'll bet you this. So Hans may not have his own business in the ideal business, but Hans has been in business, so you could give advice on business, hands down. I think building your own business is one thing, but that's enough to get it to be more than most entrepreneurs who are still trying to get off the ground, you know? So I'll give you that. But so what is this? What's the vision for what you have?
For what
Where are
we're
you guys
doing?
going to take it? Yeah.
Visions. He wants to hear visions, huh? There's lots
I
of
got visions.
Well, but visions in the sense that
What we're starting off with is a top secret.
Yes. You close your ears now, everyone.
Like a mastermind and brotherhood for men who've had success in their life, financial success, and but like Hansa said, like maybe unfulfilled in love or romance or their sex life, like that, and they've had a taste that hey, maybe something more is possible by internationalizing my life. Maybe they've had a taste of maybe they had an ex-girlfriend who was from Russia or Cuba or whatever.
Let me just tell you, if they haven't, it will only help. Like when you see the rest of the world, and then you get what femininity is, and you lose what you can see the clear line. It's not so clear actually, but you can see the line between what society gives sex, women, masculinity, all that sort of stuff, and what it actually is. But go ahead.
So anyway, this and it's a bit of a high-end mastermind, where it's not we're calling it a mastermind maybe, but it's a network. It's a basically where Hans and I facilitate people coming abroad on our travels whenever they wish. These are guys who have money, but they have limited time, but they're ready for a life of more travel, adventure, international romance, and it's not like a mail order bride thing. It's not a hey, go get laid overseas and come back. It's not like just go have a wild party vacation somewhere. It's like no, I'd actually like to have my life from now and in the future be a lot more international. Maybe have a place in the world I know where I feel alive. I've got I know I could easily go there and have comfort and ease, and there's women there who I'm naturally attracted to. They're attracted to me, and just we help facilitate that next level of life.
I think every man that has money should spend months in another country. Maybe a month in February, or maybe October, but if you have the ability to live that lifestyle, you should spend time.
Especially, if you are single or you're divorced and you're hey, what else is out there?
Yeah.
Go find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys want that, but they feel like I don't know anybody there. I don't speak the language. Go ahead. They don't go there, or they don't take that leap.
Our invitation would be into real adventure and learning other languages, not in a like textbook kind of boring ass language learning way. A lot of guys think, oh, I tried learning a language and I can't do it. It's difficult for me. Like our invitation is like for example, learning to speak Spanish in bed with a Cuban lady.
I was just going to say actually that
is a lot different than out of a book.
Pillow talk is how you learn a language. Like when oh man. And then the other thing too is like when a woman is fucking you and speaking, then she gets so carried away and she starts rattling off this shit. It's like, that inspires me. I'm trying to remember all this stuff, or like get my phone so I can record it and like no, it's not for porn. It's to actually like give to the native speaker of this language so I can understand what you're saying, because this wills me now.
Yes.
But I've been there and it's beautiful. But
That's learning by Tesão. That's learning by Tesão.
Yeah, Hans and our lives have been transformed by hunting our Tesão, our desire in our body. And so guys who want to come alive, and they have They have some money. They have some they have some freedom. They can make some choices. We can.
It's the executive brotherhood.
Yes.
Yeah. And what we offer them is our experience of traveling, each one over a decade, being in 70 countries, and a complete network of great people all over the world. Great men, great women, people you can contact when you're on the ground. So we're kind of unlocking those places so they at least get a taste for the first time, that they're outside the zoo and see that other possibility, so they get a taste for it, so they can also cultivate the daj, the longing, and say, okay, it is possible, I can do this.
And all the guys, these are all going to be guys who are committed to this kind of adventurous international lifestyle. We're all going to bring our relationships to each other.
There's a guy I know and he coaches very well-off people in terms of sports and athletics. And so he has these clients that just have money and it's like the whole money, cocaine status thing. And they get women. And then they talk about like fucking Miss Universe, Brazil, or whatever it is, like these highline people. And there's reality in that. That's true. But that's not the story I know. And it seems like the story that you guys are, I used to be against that. I'm like, no, but that's not seduction. That's not the world I know. And now I'm kind of like, you can go ahead and have it. It is what it is. It's different. I've never experienced it. I've had glimpses of it, but it just doesn't seem to get the same results that I get. But in that, and they title this as Big Dick Lifestyle. But what you guys are giving is something different.
Fuck!
You're giving.
We got the name.
No, but they don't. It's not patented. That's you guys got that, man. Come on. No, but I think you guys are sharing something different, and the definition of that difference is really what, because for me, seduction is my guide, experience is my guide, maybe connection's my guide, but everything in my life will have that interaction, the feeling.
Yes.
And so, what is that?
Well, that's the essence of it. Like, we don't want guys, like you said, that want to go there and party or bring their Americanness into Thailand or Africa or whatever, but are very willing to go on an adventure, connect there, be in the encounter, meet themselves, meet the other right there, and be transformed by that experience, and speak the local language, speak the language of women.
And to, like that ayahuasca experience that I had on that mountaintop in Rio that was gifted to me, it's not in the brochure. The same thing is true with international romance. In most cultures and countries, relationships happen through connection, through in Africa, one of my buddies drove me around Kenya to visit all of his single female relatives because he wanted me in the family, Like you're not going to find it on Tinder, you're not going to find it on a dating app, you're not going to find it in the brochure. We want to invite guys to the wild mysteries and wisdom and romance and adventure that's possible through profound connection and opening to that.
I want to read a quote about adventure. I've been wanting it, and then I say, no, I'm not going to say it. I better say it. It's my favorite quote on adventure. I wish I wrote it. Adventure is a path. Real adventure, self-determined, self-motivated, often risky, forces you to have first-hand encounters with the world. First-hand encounters with the world. The world the way it is, not the way you imagine it. Your body will collide with the earth, and you will bear witness. In this way, you will be compelled to grapple with the limitless kindness and the bottomless cruelty of humankind. And perhaps realize that you yourself are capable of both. This will change you. Nothing will ever again be black and white. And so, this is what we stand for and want to invite people into, that kind of adventure.
And Explorers Club. Exploring not just the outer world, but culture, ourselves, connection, and Explorers
So
Club.
check us out. I was my internet was messed up in my house, and so this guy came to fix it. He's like super happy, and I'm like not happy. I'm like, man, I had to wait around for this guy, whatever. He's working on the internet, and he's just talking to me, and he's like, I'm from Bosnia, and I'm like, oh man, dude, I've been all over your country, and then he's like, what, really? I was like, oh no, man. I'm like, let me show you on Facebook. And it's like from like 2011. So I'm like trying to find the pictures of like all the meat. Because you go to a Serbo-Croat restaurant, they just have like a kilo of meat you can get and all this sort of stuff. He's like, oh, we have it in Austin. You need to go. It's the Baltic Grill and da-da. So we're talking. He's like, well, where have you been? And I'm like, I've mainly just been to Croatia. And so I was telling him where I had been. And he was like, oh, they shoot Game of Thrones there. And I'm like, it's so crazy because now it's probably expensive to stay there. But when I was there, it was like nothing. It was awesome. But I'm like, the best part was that a girl met me in Split and traveled with me all the way up to Croatia, back to Austria, then to Bratislava. And then I like left and I was like, all right, goodbye. Got on a fucking plane and met a girl in Budapest, and he was like, oh, this is amazing, and da-da-da. And we were talking about all this stuff about traveling and love, and he was talking about how he met his wife, and immediately at that moment, when we could bond on something that was his country, women, sex, the youth of, before you had kids, and now his life is fatherhood and all this stuff. It was just such a cool thing to talk about, and even talk about the war. And I was like, man, my wife, she was dating a Serbian before me, and I remember she met a Croatian friend, and he goes, I know what you're gonna say, it doesn't matter. We're over the war, we all fought, it was war, bad things happened, but now, like, it was just so interesting to talk with a guy about life. But, my guard was up. I'm like, it's 2 p.m., I had to be somewhere, or, all that bullshit. It's meaningless to the connection. Now, it doesn't get me $100. It doesn't have a value in a capitalistic world in comparison to,
But
like.
you feel alive.
But you feel alive.
No, but it does. It does have a value. Not only does it bring you alive, it opens doors. You have a connection to this guy. If you were single, he might have introduced you to his sister.
Yeah.
He might have invited you to go visit his family in Croatia or whatever.
And this is what he was talking about. He was like, oh, and you would have loved my family, and it's such a different thing, whereas.
But just bring it back. It does have a value in this world.
No.
It does have a value.
It does, but if I say this camera is worth X, Y, and Z, but I'd rather talk to somebody, people can't make that equation of like, but I want this camera. I want the $1,000 whatever bucks to buy this camera. Why would I talk to you? And this is where we miss it, where the value of human connection is the experience and you being able to speak that language. And we're just not able to speak that language, I think.
We are. Look at us talking. You bring in all your cameras here in the storm here just for that.
Well, but it's also within each of us, right? It's the desire to live, to connect, to love. It's there. We just have to. It's time to awaken it.
And this is the thing with what you're saying is that, so in this is worth it to me. I don't know if it's worth it to whatever, but this is worth it to me to do this for many reasons. I like fucking with my toys, but I wanted to talk to you guys before you left.
For example, this afternoon, because we said, we gotta do this interview, and like we wanted to do it, and we're going on a plane. The only time I have is between then and then, and you had to go through traffic. We had to fight the rainstorm. You had to, you lost some work this afternoon, but because of the connection we had before, or that we're making, you said, "Fuck, I'm doing it."
You had to slaughter a giant dragon on the way here.
But no, there's no question in my mind because, and if somebody can here's the other thing too, is the value in what you guys do and the wisdom that you guys have is important. As I've always said, I have a men's group. There's plenty of it that's necessary in the world. Please repeat what I'm doing and do more and show me and whatever and yada, yada, yada. But there needs to be more of it. And if you guys can do it, fucking do it. So that's also why I want to broadcast this, because this is important. Fuck, I might have said something good. You might have said something good. You might have said something good. But it's never going to replace some of the insights that I've had from just sitting with you guys and that sort of thing. And I hope people can understand that, That being said, 3 minutes.
Aliveness, I think what binds us is that. And if we do the work that we do, I say we, but I don't know if we speak for both, but it's because we want to make a stand for that too, for that aliveness, to come alive for us, for the other man, for masculinity, you know, to have that feeling when they go abroad, for example, to feel that again, that aliveness.
To life, Laheim.
Laheim?
And I would say, guys that want to jump, like leap into this world of adventure, start speaking your desire, what you want and what you're willing to give, to serve that, to show up and contribute to that experience or that adventure. And then commit yourself when the invitation comes, say yes. Just say yes, and then start tracking that.
The yes is what changed you, but so many men are caught up in the pain of not speaking their desire. Shut the fuck up with that and just start inching towards your desire. Figure it out, stumble, be clumsy, all that sort of shit.
Yes.
Anyway, let's wrap it up.
Yep.
But what made this worth it to me was because our previous interviews that were lost were so worth it. And it's just like, if I could just sit in that conversation again, that's fucking cool, you know? Anyway.
It's great that we didn't try to redo what we did before.
Yeah.
There's no aliveness in that, right?
Yeah. And it made me even more aware of like, what's the worth it thing? The present moment of the interview is the worth it thing instead of the content, you know, that's created.
For me, like personally, basically, what's really interesting in this is the forging of the friendship.
Yeah.
Like I really sense that, like I can't follow you a lot of the time. I never understand.
Nobody can. This is common. This isn't your problem.
I sense that we could have a great friendship. We're building that, and that you could be an ally.
Yeah.
And I feel that you stand for very similar things I want to stand for, and Michael wants to stand for. And so I want to do everything I can to help that.
Sure. Yeah.
I like how you speak that, Hans. I echo that.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll take it one further. I don't know how, but I'd like to include you in this business that we're doing.
As long as it makes a lot of money, I'm in. If it fails, then fuck it. I don't want to. Hey, my wife will like that.
Some money.
Hey, dude, I know, but how could you learn the language of seduction without being a broke ass? Like but yeah. But I really think it's
a good time. It's a perfect time to do it now.
What a dick. Punch him in the dick. All right, let's get the fuck out of here.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Steve.
No, you got it.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
No, it's fucking great. Okay. Woo! Let's see how this goes. Gentlemen, you're still here. Amazing. I can't believe it. I'm holding a really heavy camera, so it's probably shaking and I might be out of focus, but thanks so much for watching that whole interview. That thing was crazy, man, crazy. All those different issues that came up, but it was worth it. Why was it worth it? Because rarely do we get to come together as men and speak like that, meaning being included in this conversation. If this is something that you liked, definitely follow Hans. Check out him and what Michael Skye are doing at hanscomyn.com. But also, what is super important is come and join that dialogue at Austin Men's Development. Hans is on that board. He's an active, continuous user. It's just something that we're all really proud of. So I'm stoked for it. I'm stoked that you're here. I'm stoked that you got to share it with us. I apologize for all the craziness, but you know, hey, shit happens. But gentlemen, wish you well. Be strong as men. This is about living a dialogue where we are people that are living our best lives, and we're the ones making it. So thank you so much for being a part of that and helping me out on that journey. We'll talk to you guys soon.